Hello everybody, welcome to another Warhammer 3 Domination battle. I am playing as Slaanesh, and my opponent is playing as Tzeentch. So I've brought Ankari, very powerful duelist. He's got insane stats, great abilities, like look at this thing, double your damage. His weakness is sort of the same weakness all Slaanesh units have, very low armor. Some Slaanesh units have shields, like these guys do, but basically all Slaanesh units have incredibly low armor values. So you don't really need to bring armor piercing against them because there's no armor to pierce in the first place. Anyway, I have a bunch of Marauders of Slaanesh, I've got some Spear guys over here on the side, and then just a big air force of Chaos Furies. My opponent has a stack of blue horrors in the front with some Forsaken in the middle, more pink horrors. He actually has flamers. These are a great unit for Tzeentch. Very squishy, very weak, very easy for them to die, but they do super strong missile damage and they apply warp flame. So whatever unit they burn will take additional fire damage. And luckily for Tzeentch, basically everything in their entire roster does fire damage, whether that's a melee attack or a ranged attack, so you can really focus down targets. He also has one unit of Furies, and he has his little Herald of Tzeentch cawing and cackling on his little shark disc. Not a very good combat lord, but he's not a lord that Ankari can just goon, because Ankari unfortunately cannot fly. So I'm not taking any risks currently. As mentioned, I'm very weak, very susceptible to Tzeentch's range tool, so I'm sort of hanging out in the back. I'm kind of just waiting for my opponent to get closer as I let the time tick by. I am also looking around at his army to see what he's got. He doesn't have a very strong air force. Summoning in more blue horrors, you know, it's just the classic thing you do as Tzeentch. So, I didn't mention it too much last time, but I briefly added that every Chaos Demon faction and the Ogre Kingdoms have class-wide abilities, or I guess army-wide abilities. Slaanesh's is when you get kills on units that are routing, then you get this special meter that fills up. You can't see it, but it would be on the right side of the screen. And he's got some good abilities. Tzeentch, Khorne, etc. You know, all the Chaos Demons have something similar to that. I'll point it out if I'm using one of those abilities. Anyway, I see these blue horrors are just hanging out here trying to go for this objective. So I attack with the Furies in the front. The Furies will do okay, but then I also rear charge with these Furies and those Furies, and I have some of my Seekers of Slaanesh that I summoned who are going to come in here. Slaanesh units have devastating flankers. They double their charge bonus when they flank. So instead of 20 charge bonus, they did 40 to their melee attack and weapon strength on this impact. And you can see after a few seconds, those blue horrors are dead. Just killed them completely. I mean, it took some losses, but nothing very substantial. Up here, the front line combat is finally beginning. My Marauders of Slaanesh gonna get bodied by these Forsaken. I use the Pavane of Slaanesh doing, you know, some damage over time against them, and Ankari comes in here and starts whapping them with his multiple limbs. These blue horrors just raining fire on my Marauders, who do have their tiny little weak shields, which do block some fire, and I'm pulling in with more Marauders. My Air Force has returned. We hit these blue horrors in the back, along with the Seekers of Slaanesh, and we collapse on top of this. I guess we sort of screwed up the charge there. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But we dogpile on top of these Forsaken with one unit of the Furies, and then the other two just get collapsed upon by the rest of my forces. Now my opponent has some pink horrors here on the hill, and he's raining down fire, and also literal fire here with his flamers just melting, absolutely annihilating my troops. And Ankari is over here. I cast Phantasmagoria, which is a spell that stuns units. They cannot move in this area of effect. So he is just over here whacking these very squishy units. On the other objective, I have infantry just dying to his infantry. But Ankari then starts getting focused fired by all of his range tools, and he starts to bleed his HP out pretty quick, and he's got the Warp Flame Affliction because Flamers apply that even in melee, so I get him out of there. If there's one thing Slaanesh has in spades, it's speed. All of their units are very, very fast, especially Ankari. At 100 speed, it's very easy for him to just run away from a dangerous situation. I'm just fighting his Air Force over here. I think I'll lose. Yeah, we lose in like a head-up fight unless I get a flank. So I pull my Furies out of there, and I'm trying to go over here to help this little beleaguered position as I have human cavalry fighting blue horrors. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll win. It'll take a very long time. In the middle here, we're just sort of grinding it out. He summons some Spawn of Tzeentch, but again, we flank them with the Seekers. He brings in the Screamers of Tzeentch, which I really hate this unit. I think it's terrible. It's also kind of bugged, although we're getting burned by the Flamers over here on the hill. Yeah, flying units are kind of bugged. They don't do damage when they're supposed to. I mean, you can look at this for yourself and see the damage value of them isn't changing. They don't really work. Something about going from flying to ground disables their attacks. Anyway, those Screamers get melted by Ankari and the Seekers of Slaanesh, but the Seekers of Slaanesh also literally get melted. As my infantry are currently being melted. These poor Marauders just being roasted alive. Very quickly killed. Ankari, I'm trying to like keep him back and forth, get him out of the fight, bring him in when I need to. I do have this position controlled by Marauders. I'm over here trying to take position 1, but I just kind of lost some stuff to it. So I'm cycling units around to get on top of these range tools. Over here, I've summoned the Fiends of Slaanesh. These things are very strong, super good monstrous cavalry. They have the Sporific Musk, so any unit they're fighting in melee is going to get a nasty debuff. And they have a pretty good weapon strength of 80. Mostly armor piercing, but that's fine. Ankari's over here fighting these pink horrors. Still, yeah, it's not a super great fight for him. He really likes fighting a single entity model because he can just kill it. He has all of these abilities that help him fight just one enemy and murder that one enemy very fast. So I pull him over here into the trees to keep him safe. The frontline grind fight is still going. His lord is still just like cackling over here, firing eldritch bolts at my poor infantry units. So I summon some Furies, and I right-click the Herald of Tzeentch, and we'll see what happens with that one. Over here, the Fiends of Slaanesh have engaged with the Blue Horrors, and you can see they're debuffed. Their combat stats incredibly poor, and their leadership is also not looking good at all. Oh, they're actually being attacked in the flank. Oh, so these guys got their big charge bonus off. And then Ankari comes back over here. Again, I use oh, I thought I used the Pavane of Slaanesh. Anyway, I use Fascination. That's one of those army-wide abilities, doing damage per second to this clump of Forsaken, because again, Ankari's not really great at killing squads. He's fine. I boost him up to 1k weapon strength. Scarbrand, eat your heart out. I've trapped his lord over here with Furies. He's screaming about needing one more mana, and he's cackling, he's not having fun, his plans are failing, etc. But there's just tons of like individual skirmishes. We've got a fight over here between some horses and Chaos Furies. I have more Hellstriders here. Hellstriders are just human cavalry. They're pretty cheap light cavalry. Just running around banging into random Tzeentch forces. I have Marauders walking up, just trying to like find blue horror units and kill them. I'm not really paying attention to the objectives as much as I am just search and destroy. Just like find a Tzeentch unit with infantry that I have, even though they're battered and, not super effective at fighting. They're just decent, and kill it. He does, however, summon a Soul Grinder straight out of the 41st Millennium to fight Ankari. Now, big mistake from my opponent here. Ankari is like designed to kill this type of unit, and the Soul Grinder is not really having any luck at all. I get some Chaos Furies in here too, just to surround him. I hit him with a big melee defense debuff, bring him down to 11, so he really can't defend himself at all. He does have some Screamers that he resummoned. chasing off some units nearby. And the Fiends of Slaanesh kill the remaining Forsaken over here, and we're actually taking Objective 1, and we've kind of, like, killed everything in the middle of the map. We just sort of, like, blitzed through his forces and massacred them, and this Soul Grinder, which really should be with the remnants of his army over here, is kind of just getting killed by Inkari. And this is a big, expensive tool that he is losing here. And I'm about to triple cap this guy, and I'm floating a ton of money. He summons in the Doom Knights of Tzeentch. Again, you know, a cool unit, but something about their flying animation, you can see, like, they do, like, this weird bouncing thing. They don't do, like, a proper charge. Something about it is, like, bugged. It might be because they're bouncing, or just... flying units seem to have some weird interactions with going to ground sometimes. The most notable I've seen it on are the Screamers of Tzeentch, who you can see, yeah, they've dove down over here. Like, you know, they've done a little damage since they've landed. We last saw them at 100 gold damage dealt value, but Inkari is about to kill them. So, and with those guys dying, you know, my opponent doesn't really have anything left. He's being pushed to, like, the edge of the map with his remaining units. I'm basically spawn camping him at this point. And I have every objective captured. My whole army's effectively still ready to go. I summoned some Daemonettes with a cultist, but they didn't do anything. Anyway, my opponent gives up, and that's the end of that game. Cool match. Frankly, I was kind of confused exactly how I did so well that I managed to win, because if you look at his units, you know, in terms of value, they didn't do that badly at all. In fact, they did pretty great. Like, almost all of his units were very cost effective, especially these Pink Horrors did fantastic. The Flamers were great. If you look at his reinforcements, the Doom Knights, yeah, they didn't pay for themselves, but they, you know, got summoned at the very end. The Soul Grinder was bad. The Soul Grinder kind of just got owned. There was a spawn unit in the middle that I just charged into and killed it immediately. The Screamers also didn't really do anything. They kind of just died. And his Lord got surrounded by my Furies and just killed. That also wasn't very good. There was some good spells he casted. But for the most part, those assets were kind of lacking. Because Inkari did not pay for himself. He did okay. I don't think I would bring him again if I was playing against Tzeentch. I picked him because I was like, okay, if he brings I want to say Sartorial. If he brings Kairos, then he can stunlock Inkari and blast him with a bunch of range damage, and I have to keep my Lord really far back. So I'm going to bring a Lord who's really tanky. Now, I could have not brought a Lord at all. You know, in my starting army, I could have just had him sit in the reinforcements, and maybe that would have been a slightly better choice because, like, wow, look at these Furies. Super value. These ones must have killed his Lord. My infantry did fine. The Fiends of Slaanesh, yeah, they barely took any damage at all and were ready to go like buzzsaws. And the cavalry was all great. You know, it still had a lot of room to get more kills. That's something that Slaanesh does very well, is killing things. But yeah, you know, it was an interesting game. I think if I had to do this again, I probably would not even take a Lord at all. I would just take even more infantry and just get as wide an army as I possibly can. Because I figured my opponent's army would be this, Blue Horrors and Flamers, maybe air units. And I thought, like, okay, you know, I'll try to contest the air away from him. And that mostly worked. Having all this mobility was instrumental to my victory in this game. But it really could have gone either way. It just sort of ended kind of like in the midpoint of the battle. There was a point where the momentum swung too much in my favor. It was basically when I killed his Lord and those Forsaken on the objective. He just didn't have anything left. His units were just dying one after another, and I was keeping my stuff alive. In tatters, but still alive. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching.